I'm afraid my healthy boundaries will end my marriage.
Hey Tyler,
Brannon, how's it going, man?
it's going well. How are you?
Great. I'm
How wa-
I, I'm doing
um
great.
okay, how was the birthday?
The birthday was awesome, man. Like you kind of saw some of it already, but it was just an amazingly surreal day for me. It happened to be my birthday. Birthdays have never really been that big of a deal to me compared to like other people in my family, but it happened to fall on the same day as my son-in-law and my daughter, my oldest daughter, graduating with their bachelor's degree from college. And that was just, it's one of those things where it's like a milestone where you kind of hits you in a weird way, like, oh, wow, like life is moving on.
Yeah.
And then on that day, they gave me a little gift with like a little card that said, the card was just really nice. And it said, just wanted to say thank you for all of the help you've provided in our journey so far. And as good of a parent as you are, you're going to make an even better grandparent. And then in the bag, there
Oh,
was like a little pair of like, my shoes. I always wear those Adidas Sambas. There's
uh-huh.
a little baby pair of Sambas. And I found out this weekend on my birthday that me and Rhiannon are going to be grandparents. Uh,
Gramps.
so
Congrats, Gramps.
maybe that's why I'm growing the beard out right now to make myself look older again because
Yeah.
I just instantly felt old. But man, like what a weird sensation to have that news hit you and you have all of this happen at once. You have flashbacks of a little girl running around playing princess dresses and tea parties as you do thinking about being a grandparent and how old you are and how soon your life's coming to an end and then just being so full of gratitude and thrilled at like what this life offers all at the same time just smashed together and
You've made it, man.
it was awesome. It was
You've you've made it.
we
What a,
with everything we do we talk about never actually arriving and that it's
yeah.
always a constant process of growth and experience but man it was a really it was an awesome day for
Yeah,
me.
it's day like that. It's like a little bit of payback, right? For all the
Yeah,
hard work and all
just
the everything.
so full of gratitude, so much
Yeah.
gratitude.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. I'm excited for you, and you're gonna make a great grandpa. So it's really weird to think of you as a grandpa.
I
So
know. I actually do feel too young to be a grandpa still.
I mean,
So
you do have two fake hips, and
I got the hips of a
fake
65-year-old
teeth,
man, but I'm
fake
still,
hips.
yeah, fake teeth. It's been a rough life, man. My
Yeah.
body has really served its purpose.
I mean, you should have been a grandpa like 15 years ago with the way your body's going, but
Yeah.
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 Well, we got to enjoy you while we have you still, because who knows how much longer you'll be living. So,
Yeah.
um, well, should we dive into this?
Yeah, man, you're the one who kind of had the question. This kind of came up and from just one of your clients or a friend of yours. So we thought we'd hit it because a lot of people probably have the same thoughts.
Yeah, and just a mention of my webinar on May 1st, 7 p.m. You can go over to reclaimyourheart.org and register. Um, it's all about boundaries. I'm going to dive into everything about boundaries. So we're not going to do that here on this episode. We're going to talk about an issue with boundaries that we see a lot of times. But if you want more information about it and to really dive into it, check out my webinar. Um, here's something that happens a lot, Tyler, especially with addiction and recovery and relationships. Um, Addiction's like worst enemy is healthy relationships. And addiction loves to create unhealthy, toxic relationships. Addiction also loves to exploit opportunities to take advantage of somebody's weakness when it comes to attachment. If I can get you to give up your values in order to support a bad habit, then I will do it. I will do whatever I can to manipulate my way into doing that.
Not for the sake of doing that, but because it's going to help me keep like fulfill what I think are my perceived needs at the expense of consuming your values.
Right. So, like an example would be, um, like you're uncomfortable that I do this thing. I do it anyways, and you complain about it, but then you don't really do anything about it. Um, so then I do it again and you complain again and I don't change anything. And then I do it again and you get it, right? Where that other
Yeah.
person is being asked to just just take it. Just kind of shut up, take it. Like you can complain, but like yeah,
And then I, as the addict, might actually then use that against you and say, well, you're always nagging me and you're always complaining and you're always negative. And so
right.
that justifies me doing whatever I'm doing.
Right. So it creates this dilemma. One of my favorite sayings is that healthy boundaries destroy toxic relationships. And the dilemma for a lot of people is them knowing that it's true, but they're in fear of the repercussions of the destruction of the relationship. So they have a toxic partner who continues to break their boundaries, continues to overstep, and ask them not to live in their truths. And they're thinking, well, if I'm honest, then bye bye to my marriage. And how does that affect the kids? All of the family and the finances and the all of that. So it's better for me to swallow my truths and my boundaries than it is for me to actually have those boundaries. Tyler, have you seen this dilemma before?
Oh man, it happens all the time. And sometimes it happens like it teases itself out sometimes where I'll be working with say a partner who's been betrayed and they're trying to climb out of the hole. And climbing out of the hole, they start learning to have some grounding for themselves emotionally, and then they start taking care of themselves with the daily charge. And then they start to grow in their confidence. And then all of a sudden they'll kind of like start it almost looks like a form of sabotage, but they'll stop taking care of themselves. They'll stop
Mm-hmm.
doing their dailies. They'll stop working on whatever boundaries they were already starting to set. They kind of almost like let things go. And then things will come out sideways and they'll either like start picking up other habits for coping, might be problems with food, or there might be some compulsive like
Yep.
weight loss type things, or there might be anger that comes out, but it's coming out sideways. And so there's a blow up over here about some stupid topic, rather than what's really bothering them, which is that they know they're getting their values stepped over, but they won't have a voice about it.
Yep.
And and then they'll come in and you finally tease it out and they're like, I know, I already know what's going on. Like
Right.
I know that in order for me to move forward, I need to do this or this in my relationship. But if I do that, it very well could mean that my relationship is going to come to an end. And then they'll say those things, Brandon. They'll say, I got to stay for the kids, or I got to do this. And those might be values, but they also might be not actually fully honest.
It's driven from a place of fear,
It's
not from a
it's the
place of
fear of the
empowerment.
unknown,
Yes.
and it's being used as a justification to stay stuck because I can't confront the fear rather than the truth.
Yes. So it's not acting in your strength, it's acting in your fear. And Tyler, and I'm sure you too, like I've lost plenty of clients because of this, where because we're making progress in therapy, we're doing well, and then the dilemma comes up, and it starts to get kind of uncomfortable for them. Of I know what I'm supposed to do, I know what my truths are, I just can't. I just won't. I just can't. And then they don't want to even talk to me because I represent trying to hold truth for them and support them. I'm actually trying to support them.
The truth.
Yeah, and they'll isolate from good people who are supporting them to stay strong, to stay boundaried. They'll push away from those good people because they have to stay in that state of fear and weakness in order to protect the relationship. And if you're in that type of a relationship, if you're listening to this right now, long term, what that does to you is it torments you. It breaks you down. You live in resentment. You get depressed. You numb out. You like everything Tyler was just talking about. It starts to take your life from you. Um, and so you got to ask yourself, what is my best option here? I always believe that living in your truth and fighting for your values and having those boundaries is your best option. But sometimes it's not the easy option.
Yeah, just an example of this. Not too long ago, I had kind of something come up in one of my groups, and it was a women's group, and this one particular participant was talking about all the ways that she was still being treated in the relationship, and the group was kind of like supporting her at the same time. They were kind of saying, you don't deserve that. And then I kind of lost it a little bit, got a little animated, and was just like, you're settling for like crumbs, for table scraps, like, just like, come on, what is, and
Wake up.
I was just like, come on, like you were so much more worthy of being treated differently than you're currently being treated, right? She sat there with it. She came back the next week and was like, I sat on everything that the group said and what you said, and you are absolutely right. Like something clicked inside of me. I know that that's true. And she started to go home and set new boundaries. And those new boundaries sort of brought this thing to a head where she came in one day to group and she was like, guys, today's my last day in group. And we're like, well, why? Like, you're killing it right now. And she said, I know. And that's the problem. Like, if I keep going the way that I'm going, um, my marriage is over and I don't want it to be over yet. And it was actually hard because the place where she was getting the most support was also the place that was kind of being naturally just up in her face of like, I know what I need to do and I'm not ready to do it yet.
Right.
And if she goes and disappears and pulls back, what she's going to do is she's going to go back into the place of a comfort zone to nurture the old relationship that was breaking everything down.
Mm-hmm.
And the price that she's going to pay is a little bit of her self respect every day until she has nothing left.
Yep.
And now she's a slave to an unhealthy relationship and is a shell of who God designed her to be.
Yep. Yep.
But there's this precipice that she comes to where she has to step off the edge and finally go, I see clearly. Now, this isn't like a knee jerk reaction. It's not an anger, bitter thing. It's more of like a, wow, I see the truth of my situation. And if I'm going to maintain my self respect, this is my next natural step. And in that process, that is the courageous next step that leads into the wilderness.
Can I give you a scenario? I,
Yeah.
I, I want your 2 cents on it. Um, so here's the scenario. It's kind of a flipped scenario a little bit. Um, this this guy, his wife is going to a program like BTR, and it's this just angry, unhealthy, controlling program, right? And this guy is like, the book No More Mr. Nice Guy. Like he's like the poster child of it.
He's going to be on the next edition.
So you can imagine, he's Mr. Nice Guy, and she's going to it's not BTR, but it's like that. How do you imagine this going?
She goes to her women's group. She's told how abusive her husband is and how much she needs to set quote boundaries. And the boundaries are that she needs to go him and tell him exactly how he needs to live his life. And
Yes.
and if he doesn't do exactly what she says, then that means he's being abusive. Is that
He's,
close, Brannon?
yeah, sorry.
You lose your headphones?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you've seen it once or twice. Um, but here's the catch 22 is what needs to happen in this situation is for both of them to have healthy boundaries. And if he doesn't have healthy boundaries, then she'll continue to spin in unsafety. She'll continue to not know who he is. He's continuing to Mr. Nice Guy it, so he's manipulating the situation. He's showing up as a liar. So what he what he needs to do is show up with some good healthy boundaries. So in her program she has all these things that he has to do in order to not be an abuser. And some of the things are fine and then some of the things are crazy. And so I was talking to him and I was saying, and he's like, yeah, he was like, kind of throwing his hands in the air saying, I'll probably just do some of this stuff. Well, the truth is that's a big problem if he does it. But here's the catch 22. If he has boundaries around those things, then his marriage very well might end.
It might.
So um like he could preserve his marriage the way that it is. What's the issue here, Tyler?
Well,
What's actually destroying this marriage?
well, he could preserve, but if he preserves his marriage in this scenario the way that it is, he also preserves not being trustworthy.
Yeah.
So the relationship still has the currency of a lack of trust.
The marriage is horrible.
Yeah. So
Like,
maybe here's an example. Let's make it a concrete example of this,
okay.
Brannon. So one of those things, let's say, is that he has had some inappropriate relationships with other women, and
Okay.
so that's part of the thing that's breaking them apart. And she decides that in order for in order for him to be in recovery, in order for him to love her, he's never going to talk to another woman again other than her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And he willingly agrees to that in order to keep the peace, in order to not have
Despite
the
working with
tension.
women at work and
Yeah,
like,
he
yeah.
pretty much has to change his job, so he needs to go work at
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
a steel plant or something, where even there's probably still a few women he'd bump into, but for the most part, he would never see any women.
Right.
If he willingly agrees to that, there's going to be two things that happen. Number one is that in the back of her mind, she knows that that's actually kind of ridiculous.
Right.
Like she's looking for safety, but she's trying to create safety by living in the non-reality that 50% of the population is women, and by trying to avoid the trigger that causes the fear.
Right.
And so in doing that, she says, I need you to do this. And then in him accepting it, he's not actually being honest with who he is. So he is now placating her in order to stay out of trouble with her. So he's doing it selfishly to avoid the conflict rather than to sustain like
This
his
all
own
sounds
values
really
as a
good for
person.
relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. So now he acquiesces, and then when he acquiesces, she feels his weakness and knows that he's trying to extract from her that he's good enough. He starts to resent her, but
Yes.
he won't say it out loud, and then that
Right.
resentment starts to come out sideways. And then when he can't actually stick to the actual reality of what he agreed to, then he gets nailed to the wall for being dishonest and being an abuser.
Yep.
And he's now not trustworthy and an abuser and resentful, instead of having the conflict of just having to say, hey, you know what? I can see you're in a ton of pain. I know that these things have caused a lot of problems, and I'm sad and sorry that I've hurt you that way. And I have to live in a world where I'm going to interact with women. I'll do it with some new bottom lines, but I'm not going to say yes to that. I can't do that.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
And there she might freak out, she might divorce him, she might
She might.
whatever. But him staying true to that value, to that principle of honesty, um, is his best shot for everybody and for everything.
In the long
Um,
run,
yep. Um, I had a scenario. This is years ago. Um, but this wife was demanding that this guy who ran a business, he had an assistant who basically ran the business, who was amazing, who was like just stellar. And he had never had any issues with her, no problems, no lust, no nothing. And the wife came along and said, "You have to fire her. You have to fire her for your recovery. If you're going to be in recovery, you need to fire her. If I'm going to stay married to you, you better fire her." And so came to therapy and was like, "I don't know what to do. This is so unfair to her. She's been working with me for a long time. Um,
there never been any type of improprieties there.
Nothing,
Okay.
no issues in the past, but the wife just had an issue specifically with this one woman, about something about the way she looked or whatever. And so he we talked a lot about his boundaries and being honest with her, and he went and he fired her, and then like 3 months later, his wife divorced him anyways. Right?
Yeah.
Do you see like he went and chose the weak path to try to protect the relationship that was already toxic, and the relationship ended anyways. Um, so sometimes stepping into the truth of things creates like it kicks up the dust. It creates some conflict. That conflict isn't necessarily a bad thing in a relationship. If my wife came to me and said, "Hey, Brannon, I have a boundary around this thing," or "I need to talk to you about something. This isn't working for me." She hates if I leave my towel on the floor, for example. She has a huge value about a towel. Now we can have all kinds of other crap everywhere, but the towel on the
Hang up
floor.
the towel, Brannon.
Yeah. Um, Now she can come to me honestly, vulnerably, and authentically and be like, "That's not working for me." Um, And let's say I love throwing my towel on the floor. Like I value that. It's just my favorite thing, right? So then we both come to the table and we get a good opportunity to share with each other who we are, right? And then in that opportunity, we can say, "Okay, you value this, I value that. How can we meet each other's needs?" Like I really do want to meet your need. I care about your boundary, but I also got to be honest with you about who I am and what mine are. So like there's probably a way. What if I throw my towel on the floor over in that one room that you don't care about? And she's and
In the corner of my own personal
yeah, I
closet.
just love throwing my towel there. Um, you know, and she's like, "That's great. And if you would go out of your way to throw it there, I would feel so loved and cared about because you wouldn't throw it there."
And it would show
Right?
that you'd heard me and that you'd understood my
Yeah.
concerns.
And so then it's like, okay, we can absolutely be compatible with our values here and work this out. But we never would have gotten there ever if both of us didn't come to the table and say, this is who I am.
I think Brannon, in the example that you're giving, the towel one is a terrible one because you should just hang up your towel, dude. But since we're using that for a minute, like
I actually do hang up my towel. Thank you very much.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But what I think it is, what you're getting at here is that, and this is really important, I think, for everyone to listen to because we get so stuck here. Most of us do sometimes. Um, really what ends up happening is we get stuck in a power situation in this kind of a scenario where it's like someone has to win. Either the towel's going to get hung up or it's not. And then you actually miss the principle, what you just described, Brandon, which is if both of us see this as a different game where we're coming to understand one another, now the discussion itself is as important or more important than whether or not the towel is going to get hung
Right.
up. Because now it's like, oh, like, so Rhiannon and I took these tests called Understand Myself. It's the Big Five Aspect Scale that Jordan Peterson does. And then it generates like a couple's version of it for you. And it goes through different parts of your personality. And one of them, just as an example, one of them is orderliness, meaning like you're really good at keeping things in order and staying organized and how much you value orderliness. And it's like at a scale of 0 to 100. My orderliness, can you guess, Brannon?
Can it be negative?
It was almost negative. I came back at a 6 out of 100, which means that 94 people out of 100 are more orderly and value orderliness more than I do. And guess what my wife came back as?
Yeah, yeah.
She came
Probably.
back she came back as a 91. So so only 8 people are more orderly than her. So what does that do to our relationship?
It
It
could really
means
work.
what it means is that I've in our relationship we've kind of negotiated that I'm the one who cleans our like master bathroom. And I usually, of course, let it go a little too long. And then she'll usually say something to me, and then I'll clean it. And then when I clean it, I know what's going to happen because for some reason we had to put the smallest tiles in that catch every single hair that so I'll clear the whole thing out. I vacuum the tiles, then I sweep the tiles twice, and then I mop the floor. And and after that, it's still going to not quite be perfect. because my 4 doesn't line up with her 91. And if
You're
we don't,
six. You're six.
yeah, 6, sorry.
Give
But
yourself some credit.
thanks, thanks,
Yeah.
man. So, but my 6 doesn't line up with her 91. And naturally, even when I think I just killed it, I just knocked it out of the park trying to show, like, hey, I know how important this is to you. It's naturally going to come back as not being good enough. And in the past, that would just be like, she thinks I don't value her and I think I can never get anything right.
Right.
But now we can have
Right.
that discussion and I can say, hey, like, this is what I did trying to be sensitive. And I understand and acknowledge that even in that, there's no way that I was able to get it all perfectly right. And then she can come in and say, I see that you made the effort. Thank you. And do you mind if I touch a couple of things up?
Right.
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 And then I'm like, oh yeah, because that's more about her just wanting that rather than like her thinking that I didn't value her or vice versa. But it's the discussion in between that was just as important towards our intimacy and understanding and connection with each other as it was who's right, who's wrong.
Right. Well, and Tyler, the point that you're making is that, like, if you think about relationship, you don't know somebody unless they're actually authentic. Like you don't know them. And so like if you're just placating or acting in fear and trying to perform and doing this and doing that, you don't know that person. But if you both come to the table with who you are and you're different, you're both different, but you're honest about who you are, that is being a healthily boundaried individual in a relationship. I am who I am. You are who you are. I know where you stop and I begin. And you're beautiful and you're wonderful and you're different than me. And we have to figure out how to live together here in those differences and honor those differences as much as possible. Um, that's the goal. Now, if I am coming to the table and saying, "Look, I'm going from weakness and fear into strength and honesty," and my partner is like, "I hate when you're authentic." Like, ooh, like don't be. Let me do everything I can to get you off of your rocker there. Like, let me make sure that doesn't happen. You're in a toxic relationship versus a partner that's like, holy freaking crap, I love this. Like, good. Like, yeah, I might not like what you're saying. Like, that's not like, but I love that you're saying it. I want you to be you. I really do. Um, then you're in a healthy relationship where you're supporting each other's differentiation and supporting each other's authenticity. So coming back to the sacrificing your boundaries for the relationship thing, what I think what you really need to look at is what are you so afraid of? You need to face the fear instead of try to force the boundary. So
You got to go towards your own fear and make peace with it.
yeah, yourself of like, hey, what is it here? Like I know I'm feeling resentment. I know I'm feeling taken advantage of. I know I'm feeling depressed. Like, okay, what fear is there that's getting me to this place? And I got to really take a look at it. And I got to look it in the eye. And the fear might be about divorce. It might be abandonment, rejection. Some of your trauma stuff might come up. But it's that stuff that's driving you staying, I call it, I'll say, well, it's not safe. You staying stuck, right? So um, you have to look within.
Absolutely. Um, you said Brandon earlier, and I want maybe to go along with what you're saying here. This is maybe a different way of kind of if you find yourself in this position, like if I have healthy boundaries, it's going to end my relationship. It goes along with what you're saying was earlier that healthy, good boundaries will ruin toxic relationships.
Yeah.
You could also, as a way of trying to understand this and even help with your own fears about this, healthy boundaries will ruin the toxic relationship, but they will also be an invitation for a healthy one. And that might be with the same person.
Yeah.
So when you come to this place in your own relationship where you realize that the only real pathway forward for what you want in your relationships is authenticity, then you step in more and more with authenticity, and it will break the toxicity of the relationship, but it may be inviting with the same person a new relationship,
Hmm.
one where there is more authenticity, where there is more understanding, where there is more connection, and maybe even a little bit more tension for the sake of the greater good.
Hmm.
And so it
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily mean the relationship itself will be over. It might be. It might be that that's what happens when there's more authenticity. And if that's the case, you're still better off being in your authenticity than you are living a lie.
Yep.
But you're also inviting something new. And that's how a lot of people heal here. They stay in their relationships and they fight for it, but they do it by both becoming more authentic and stepping more into their self respect.
Tyler, there's so much more to boundaries than what we're talking about, and I just want to say, like, I'm gonna really get into that on May 1st. To understand what's underneath all of this is really important. So I don't want to let the cat out of the bag right now. But boundaries are way more than just like going to your partner and saying, "Don't do that anymore," or I'm gonna tell you what works for me and what doesn't. Like boundaries are so much more than that. So come join me for the webinar. I'd love to have you there.
Amen. Brandon,
You li-
we just got the reason I was delayed is we just got a comment over here that just says, "Hey, I was trying to schedule a call to come on the show, and I couldn't schedule a time." It's so funny that this comment came today because what did we just get done talking about,
I
Brandon?
Yeah, I was losing my mind earlier
You,
about stuff like this.
you you were so frustrated because our website, like somehow our scheduling got messed up on the website. So people haven't been able to schedule calls with us probably for like 2 or 3 weeks, and we haven't known it until just
We're gonna
now.
fix it, and we would love to have guests. So please sign
Yeah,
up.
please.
I think we're gonna fix it. I hope. I need
We're
to have boundaries with some people.
we're the you need to get your heart at peace first, Brandon, and then you need to have some boundaries.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so Micah, we will have that website up and running. So if anybody would like to come on the show and actually be a caller with us, we would love to have you. That's therapybrothers.com. And you can go over there and probably hopefully by the time most people are listening to this, we will have figured that out and there'll be available slots to schedule.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for reaching out on that.
Well, Tyler, should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think so.
Any last words?
Yeah, key last takeaways here is basically as scary as it is, go towards your fears to understand yourself, make whatever peace you can with those fears, and then the pathway forward always includes authenticity.
You'll never feel freedom and peace unless you're living in your truth and integrity. That's the only way to feel peace and freedom. And when a relationship comes around that says you can't live in your integrity, you really got to examine that relationship. And I would prioritize living in your truth over a relationship and any day. So, all right, you guys, thanks for listening. Till next time.
Keep on keeping on.